Katya is already with us, and what should I say about her? How should I introduce her? Well, Katya is a presentation and data designer, and she's based in Barcelona, one of the most beautiful cities in the world, or at least in Europe for sure, but that makes it in the world too, I don't know. She is also now an author of 3 courses for the now very popular platform called Domestika, and she's here together with us today so that she will share with you how to brainstorm. What are the tools to brainstorm a design? What are the tools that you need to know about? And how do you do the first steps when you're about to design your slides? Katya, take it away. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Boris. Thank you for the introduction. And welcome everyone to the session. So yeah, as Boris mentioned, I'm going to be talking about my probably favorite part of the design of presentation, which is the initial art direction. I always say that at least 80% of the process of designing a presentation has to be, or ideally should be, done before you even opening the presentation software. So basically before you see this empty slide, which we all fear, I think, because you jump in there and you have no idea what to do, and you start improvising and throwing things in there. So I'm not talking only about the content here, because it obviously has its own preparation process, but I'm talking more about the visual part. So ideally, what separates good presentation from an amazing one is that the moment you open your presentation software and the moment you see this slide, you already know what to do. And you have made all the decisions about the style, which means you have selected the typography, you have the color palette selected, and you know what kinds of visual you're going to be using. And what will make you even more pro is that you have maybe even a collection of images prepared for each slide, but that's an extra. Now, what do we base all these decisions on? That's, I think, the most interesting part. I work often for the early stage startups and companies that don't have solid brand identity yet. And so I basically have to come up with the style from scratch. And the method I use is to create a mood board first, using only external visual references. And then I translate this mood board into the actual design of the slides. So the first step, usually when working with client, is to set a discovery call, in which I try to collect as much information as I can about the company. And I also look for visual keywords from the client that will help me come up with the style, right? So in this example, this is a real example for a real project. This was a pitch deck for a startup, a data science and artificial intelligence startup. And on our discovery call, the client mentioned words like technology, future, transparency, and solid to describe his company. So what I did is to use these keywords to come up with 3 different art directions. This first one that you're seeing right now is based purely on the concept of technology. So you can see it's probably reflected in the color palette, in the style of the typography. I also use pretty complex visuals. You can see a lot of transparency and like overlaid elements in the deck. Also with like a lot of dots and technology, visual elements. Now this next style was based more on the concept or the keyword solid. So you can see it's basically more or less the same color palette, but with much more contrast. So I'm proposing to use mostly black background with bolder typography, big words, like big headlines, and they would be combined with simple graphs and lines and more solid colors. So that's the second direction that was presented. That's the third one. This one was based on the concept of future. So immediately thinking about future, I thought about this, the hologram, right? This little thing that helped me visualize this style better. So I looked for that, and I came up with this direction. I wanted to be lighter, more transparent in comparison to the previous two. You can see a lot of blue. The typography is thinner, and it's quite different from the first ones. So I presented those three directions to the client. We talked a little bit about them, and he ended up selecting this third one. Okay, he thought that the transparency was one of the most important values of this company, so that's what he wanted to communicate visually as well. That's why he chosen this one. And I just want to quickly show you the result of the final deck and how it's similar to this initial art direction. That's the final deck, and as you can see, it's pretty similar. I picked up exactly the same color for the background. The typography is round and thin. I used this dot 3D artwork for the cover, and also some dot elements just to make it a little bit more techy. And so the idea is that you basically inspire your style beforehand, and then once you're in the program, the only thing you have to worry about is how to arrange the elements. So basically, you have to only think about the layout because the rest is already there. So that's the process I use, and the idea is that. Now I'm gonna explain a little bit more the step-by-step process of how it works, but now I think you get the idea. So the first step is, as I said, after the discovery call, or if you're doing the project for yourself, if you're creating presentation for yourself, you can also come up with those visual keywords. And then with them in mind, you go into the internet and you just start browsing for external design references. So I put together these 4 that I use a lot. So if you want to just make a screenshot right now to use them later. And basically the process is, first of all, in time-wise, it's quite unpredictable because sometimes for a simple project like a pitch deck, the research process can take me an hour, and sometimes it can take me 2 days. So it's almost impossible to tell how long it's going to take. But basically, the idea is to just go out there and start looking for inspiration, and just start collecting the images into the folder on your computer. That's what I do. And in this first step, it doesn't really matter whether they match or not. I'm just going to collect everything into one folder. And then on the next step, we're going to see if they fit and start putting them together. But right now, the first step is just to collect everything. Now, the platforms that I use most are the first 2. It's Pinterest and Design Inspiration. What's good about Design Inspiration is that all the images in there are just design, because as you know, in Pinterest, we have also the recipes and like the workout sessions and everything. And in designinspiration.com, there's just design. So it's easier to look for inspiration. And they also have this feature when you can search for color. So if you know, like, for example, if your project is about the environment, and it's something like one of the concepts that you want to communicate is that you're responsible and green, and you want green to be your color, then it's going to be very easy to find references in designinspiration.com. Then on Pinterest, it's not as easy to find like random references, but it is easy to look for something more particular. Like in the examples that I showed you before, I was looking for a hologram. So basically, if you just put hologram into Pinterest search space, you're going to see a lot of results. And then once you enter on one that you like, below you're going to have lots of similar things. So it's a very interesting process of research on Pinterest because of that, because of the algorithm that they have. And then I also use a lot Behance and Dribbble, which are both platforms for designers to upload their portfolio if you don't know them. And it's also an infinite source of inspiration. On Dribbble, I think you have to be registered to be able to see the images, but on Behance, I think it's pretty open, so you can search a lot. And there's so many beautiful designs out there, so it's quite infinite. Now, imagine that we collected already all of our visual references into a folder. Now I'm going to show you the next step, and for that, I'm going to actually demonstrate to you how I do my mood board. There are a few ways to do that. You can use any of them, the one that works best for you. You can even use Canva or any design software, any presentation software, anything. The idea is to just put together images. What I do is I do my mood board directly in Keynote, and I have this template that I created a while ago, and it works beautifully for me. So this is Keynote, and these are just empty square shapes with color or without color. I'm going to explain this feature a bit later, but the idea is to fill them with images like that. Now here I have, it looks way fuller, this folder. I made pre-selection already. So now what I do is to just grab an image and I drag and drop it into the shape. And as you can see, automatically you can select the piece of an image that you want to show. And I think this is pretty good for the mood board exercise because, for example, in the whole image, I'm not looking for showing these particular colors because they don't match to the style that I want to create. So I'm going to pick this part, maybe even make it smaller, just to show the whole calendar in this case. And I'm going to leave it like that. And so basically that's what I do. I'm going to fill all the little squares with the images. And this is a good way to check whether they fit or not, because you see them all together. And if there's something that doesn't fit in color-wise or style-wise, you will see it immediately. So that's why the exercise is so useful. The references could be the designs that are ready or made by others. It can also be a particular color palette that you can also drop in there, or maybe the font that you liked, or even an image. If you're planning to use images like photography in your presentation, you can also use the mood board for that, just to see if it fits with the typography and colors that you selected previously.
of those pieces together, people were wondering how are you doing the part on the right hand side, like.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish with that.
All right.
That's
Cool.
the interesting.
All right. Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, people ask me a lot about this feature because they think that it's a kind of widget or something inside Keynote. It is not. In fact, it's just a bunch of lines and circles that I put together. And I'm gonna explain it just in a moment. I just want you to see how the final mood board would look like. And again, the good thing about this grid is that you can use two images. I mean, the same image in two or more squares and showing off different parts that are interesting in some way. Oops, no, this is a GIF. Okay, so the process, of course, right now has been way quicker than it usually is. Normally, it's a lot of trying and seeing if the things fit together or not. Here, the selection was made already, and now regarding this this graph here on the right side, this is something that I use a lot, especially when I'm presenting the art direction to a client. So of course, if you're making the mood board for your own presentation, you probably don't need that. But I find it very useful, especially for communicating better with the client, because the visual language that the designers we use, sometimes it's not that as easy to understand for someone that is not a designer. So I came up with this solution, and basically what I do is to wait for the direction to be made, and then I just move the circle up and down or left to right between the opposite values, let's say. And I came up with these because I think that they make sense to me, but of course they can be others. But you can classify the style a bit more, and this way the client, when they receive that direction, they can just double check if it's aligned with its company's values. It's basically for that. And then I use this this paragraph here just to describe a bit further. Again, this is another way to translate the visual style into something more tangible, something more concrete. But yeah, basically, as you can see, it's just normal basic Keynote elements. I think you can make something very similar in PowerPoint or in Google Slides as well. To be honest, I just really love to play around with this. I think it's super fun. And that's it. And that would be the art direction. Then to translate it into the actual design, what do we do? You can use the exact mood board to actually pick the colors from it, or you can just use it to inspire the color palette and then make it outside. Then you do exactly the same with the typography. So here we used a sans serif fonts. It's not the same font everywhere, but you get the style. It's pretty round and clean. And also we know that we're going to be using gradients. We're going to be using this line elements, complex charts, things like that. So this already communicates the style to a client, in my case. Okay, so that's the idea. I don't know if you have any questions.
Let's see. Can you hear me now? Yeah, should be hearing me now.
Yeah.
All right. So there were quite a lot of discussions in regards to the right hand side and how that was done, right? But obviously that is a keynote that like you have just built them for you in Keynote, right?
Exactly.
Is it that you? Is there some like it's you that decides? Okay, this is more modern, so you drag the slider to the right hand side.
Exactly. Exactly. The idea is just for me to translate something very visual, which is sometimes it's not as easy to interpret for someone who's not a designer. So I just basically translate what it means to me, or what it means visually, into the actual words or the actual values. So I see that this style is more modern, so I move the circle to the right. And so the client, in my case, would, I think, understand it better, and they actually find it very useful.
Okay.
And as I said, you can build the same thing in PowerPoint or in Google Slide. It's just a line and a circle and text.
Yeah, got it. That is indeed like what you said at the beginning when you said, hey, like you shouldn't be starting your presentation without getting all of those ideas first to inspire you, right? That was very interesting thought here. And there are some interesting questions coming up, which are, for example, regarding the 4 websites that you showed, like the Pinterest. I think that Pinterest would work also with Pinterest.com, not only the ES, I think, right? It's global, the global website. However, there is a question related to those websites, which is about copyright. Are those, like what you're finding there, right, in those websites, is the copyright free there, or do people, once they find an idea there, do they need to pay for it? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because at this point, this is something that only 2 people will see, probably. It's you and the client. So this mood board is not going to be published anywhere. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to be sold. So at this point, you don't have to worry about the rights, as long as you're not using the visuals in the actual presentation. So this is just basically showing an example, because if you make a screenshot of I don't know, Apple website and you show it to a client, like, do you want it to look like this? Of course, you're not going to pay the rights. So the idea is that it's just a few examples that are put together to communicate the style that then you're gonna inspire your design on.
Yeah.
Right. So there's nothing to worry about at this point.
Yeah, correct. Very cool. So, by the way, there was also a question in regards to the criteria that you have for the sliders. Like, what are those exactly? Because if you are able to a little bit zoom them, because there is somebody, Andreina, I think. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Jesus, can you go back to the slides? And because she's curious, exactly. So she was curious about those criterias. Now I think everyone will be able to see them. Probably there are some people that are, I don't care about the copyright now. Let me screenshot that. So maybe people.
You can feel free and screenshot.
People are doing that. So in the meantime, keep it there for a few seconds so that people are seeing it. Let's see what are the other questions here. Is the table you're using on a template of Keynote? The table, maybe they refer to the layouts?
To the grid.
To the grid, maybe, yeah. Or are those just shapes, or is it a table somehow?
No, those are just shapes. Can I zoom out already?
2, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Let's go back. Yeah.
Yeah, these are basically just, well, now they have the image inside, but basically what I do is to create a square, and then I copy paste it. I do it with a keyboard now, but basically it's that. And you do a bunch of them. I have maybe 12 is a bit too much, because it's not as easy to combine images so many images together. So it's again, nothing about this template or nothing about this process is scientific or something. It's just something that I use for myself, and I see that it works. But you can create a mood board with 4 images or 3 images.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be as complex as this one.
Yeah, and there is, by the way, a question that's very, very much touching on a topic that you, like you said something at the beginning, that when you're using this when you're presenting an art direction to a customer, especially because of the people that you're currently working on, or at least many of them don't have a brand already created, right? And there is a question related to that. Is that something that you would advise people who are, some of them here in the chat at least are designers, by the way, but many of the people who are joining us today for this session are not designers, and they work for some of the biggest brands, obviously, in the world. Is that a good idea? Would you recommend them doing that when they have already an established brand? So they have a presentation coming up. Should they have a brand? They have a brand guideline. They have a lot of assets, etc. Do they need to do that again? What's your take on it?
They can totally do it, especially with the style of the images, because this one probably is more focused on getting the colors and the kind of visuals and the typography. If you already have all those decisions made for you, you can do that as well. Maybe looking for references in terms of the layout. How would you arrange the information? Because that's when you can get creative with the existing brand, and also the styles of the images or the graphs that you're going to be using. So yeah, totally, you can do that totally. In fact, I do mood boards for everything. If I have to do an design an infographic, I will do a mood board for that too. It's just a starting point for anything, really.
Okay, and there is, by the way, the designers now in the room are asking, hey, and what if I need to present an artboard, or I want to present a concept to a customer, be that for a presentation or not? Do I create, or do I show them one art direction, or do you create more mood board? Is it just one mood board that you show to your customers, or are there 2, 3 more? How do you approach it?
That's an amazing question. I usually present several just so they can choose from something, right? Because if you're presenting one, I mean, that depends a bit on the case, but even if it's clear how it should look like, it's always good to go like one step to the right and one step to the left, and present maybe 2 slightly different directions just so they can choose, because clients love to be able to choose in this, especially in this first step, so that's why, yeah, I always come up with a few. Even if I know exactly how the style should look like, I always come up with a few just to let them decide. And then the good thing about presenting the art direction up front is that, first of all, you're using external references, so there's not much actual design involved. It's a pretty quick process once you have the references, right? So it's a very good way to set expectations.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning of when I started doing presentations, I would make a mistake of maybe presenting the first round. The first delivery would be the entire presentation designed. That was a complete disaster, because there would be a lot of feedback, a lot of changes, and I found that with time that it's very important to set the expectations first. That's why I'm using the mood boards, because this way, when you present the actual styles to a client, they already know what to expect and they're not going to be surprised. And even more, it's something that they have chosen.
Yeah.
So then it's going to be way less changes and way less feedback.
Yeah, it's always tricky to present something that's related to design. It's like we have experienced it exactly as you said at the beginning of the company. We were more or less sending the whole deck without actually showing the organization how it will look, and they were like, well, this is not how we were imagining it. And so that's why, for example, you can send a few slides first or a few directions first or an artboard like that or something similar. And then once they agree, you now have an agreement and they're looking forward to seeing that complete slide deck or document or whatever it is. By the way, there is a complementary question more or less in regards to global brands and brands that are very well established. Like, do you recommend and how do you approach the conversation maybe with the customer? How do you approach the moment when you personally want to add new things to that brand? How do you, especially when it's super established brand, right? A global organization, etc. Do you recommend people leading that conversation if they see an opportunity for that? Like, how do you mix and match new styles into a very well established brand guideline or whatever we might want to call it?
Right. I mean, totally. If you see the opportunity to bring in something new in there, totally. In this case, I wouldn't maybe do a mood board. I would do a first demo, like the first design with those elements involved, so they can visualize how this is going to look like, and maybe do also 2 or 3 versions just for them to select. But I mean, totally, and depending on the brand, many of them, I think the big one, the global ones are actually very open to that, and their brand can be scalable and can be evolving. That's the idea right now.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, I think that every great organization probably is always looking forward to improve, right?
Exactly.
And if you show them an opportunity to improve, they should be, I'm not going to say they must or they will, but they should be, like, they should welcome it, you know? At least that's what we're seeing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Favorite tool, just a question for myself, is it Keynote on your end? Are you using PowerPoint or Keynote only?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm being criticized for that quite a lot, but yeah, I started doing presentations in Keynote years ago, and that's my favorite option. I know it's very simple, very intuitive. Besides, I worked my whole life on a Mac, so definitely.
All right. And
in fact, sometimes I'm asked to create a PowerPoint presentation, so I do it in Keynote and then I export it in PowerPoint.
That's what I was about to ask you, because I know for sure that not all of your customers, for sure, and not the whole world is still on Macs or will be on a PC only in the upcoming future. Like, how do you manage that conversion? Because I'm sure that you are seeing some places, some elements that don't show up in the same way that you expect them.
Exactly that. So I always do the first version, the first full design in Keynote, then I export it in PowerPoint. I check if everything's, because sometimes there is a misalignment between the lines or the text or something like that. Sometimes the icons appear with low quality. So I fix all that. And then from then on, I'm working in PowerPoint. So if there's changes or new slides, I'm going to do it in PowerPoint.
By the way, have you noticed we're still waiting? Oh, there is one more question, but I need some time to read it first. And in the meantime, have you noticed, have you ended up exporting a PowerPoint presentation to a PDF on a Mac? Have you ended up, or you always, if it needs to be a PDF, you export it from Keynote in first place?
I export it from Keynote usually. Okay. But then again, if I ended up in PowerPoint and it's the version number 15, then I will export it in PDF probably.
Yeah, I think that you would be, you have to check what's going to happen once you export. And for everyone in the chat who knows what's going to happen once you export a PowerPoint presentation on a Mac to a PDF, you know, you may be shocked what's going to happen. Expect the size of the file to go huge. So that's why I was asking whether or not you're using an additional software to compress afterwards the PDF that's coming from the PowerPoint for Mac,
Right.
because Keynote doesn't have this problem, but PowerPoint has it for so long now, and it's very it's annoying and it frustrates a lot of people, including me. But that's another story. I'm not that important right now.
One of my dreams for the future is to be able to only take on projects in Keynote.
Wow,
maybe I will be there. You know.
That's a huge ambition that you have. That's a huge ambition that you have. That is guaranteed. So Kathleen is asking, do you have an example of how you translate a mood board into a layout slides, or is your mood board only for above the surface type of concept?
Well, that's what I showed before. I'm going to show it again.
Yeah, maybe let's do it again.
Yep. So basically, this is the mood board with only external references, and that's the result of the actual deck. So yeah, as I said at the beginning, the only thing that you need to think about now is the layout, because the rest, you can see that I even used almost the exact same visuals for the cover.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same color, very similar typography. So yeah, maybe it's not as literal, but yeah, we use it for inspiration. So that's the idea.
So that being said, of course, there is always a question related to, because we have 5 more minutes, there is always a question about the human element to it, you know? Like, how do you approach the customers that are not that open to changing or to some crazy ideas? Like, what is the process there? Do you approach them at all, or just say, okay, that's me, that's how I see it, etc.? How do you do it?
I never had this problem, actually.
All right.
I never had it. Yeah, because they're usually, as I said, I work a lot with startups, so maybe that's the reason why most of my clients are like very open-minded and always want to experiment with their style, and they really appreciate this exercise, because just think about it this way: they hire me to do a presentation, and I basically end up with a branding exercise for them. So they really appreciate it. And then in case of this client, we did this presentation first, and then I ended up designing their website, their logo, their everything. So yeah, people are, in my experience, my clients are very open to experiment and play around with.
Yeah, and they trust you, and they trust you to experiment with the brand and show them where this brand can go visually.
Exactly. I'm sure this wouldn't work with like a very solid corporate company, but yeah, I'm lucky to work with smaller ones.
Yeah. There is a question about Prezi. Are you a fan? Have you used it? What are your thoughts on Prezi at all, if you're using it?
Not for clients. I think I used it when I was studying. So I know how it works, but I use it very, like a few times maybe in my life.
Yeah.
But I think it's cool. The idea is really cool.
Yeah, then you need to stay for the next session, because the global brand manager for Prezi will join us, and he will be showing the latest things that happened in Prezi. I think everyone will enjoy that session, and you'll see something related to what they call Prezi Video, which is quite an interesting technology. I would say that they announced probably last year, at the beginning of last year. It was way before COVID, and then COVID hit, and this technology was like just in the perfect tech for the perfect moment. So for everyone who is still here, stay tuned for that session that's coming up in 18 minutes or something. All right. Any other question? I'm not seeing questions. There are a lot of, by the way, there was a question whether or not you are monitoring, or whether or not you know what is the most used presentation software across your customers, having in mind that they're startups.
Most of them are using Keynote too.
Wow, that is interesting.
Yeah. And
not Google Slides. That is interesting.
Google Slides too. That's what I was going to say. So there is more combination of Keynote and Google Slides, and less PowerPoint. Yeah. In fact, the latest PowerPoints that I did was for corporate companies. That says a lot.
Interesting. This next generation of companies, I think, are coming with the Google ecosystem, right? Coming from the Mac world, and also expecting this Slack type of experience also, right?
Yeah.
At least that's what we see. And the email concept is like very foreign, you know. The Microsoft ecosystem seems a little bit foreign. Not that it's like no-go, but it seems foreign, which is, I don't know where this went, but let's see. Who knows? I mean,
Yeah,
we'll
the
see
world
how
is
that one goes.
changing.
Katya, we answered, like, you are the first speaker to answer absolutely every single question. Congratulations on that. We will have to give you an award.
Thank you.
However, I would highly recommend you join the Hopin platform now, because there were a lot of people that are fans of your courses on Domestika. They're saying that since they looked and they consumed and watched one of your first courses, they completely changed the way they approach their slides. And their slides, there was a quote that their slides are improving on a daily basis now. So I think that you should engage with those people in the chat. So join them in the chat afterwards and engage with them. I think they will love it. So thank you so much for joining us.
Will.
Yeah, thank you so much
Very much
for joining us.